Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's CAP office hour with myself, Veronica, CAP Technical Assistance Project, as well as Neil Kelly from the State CAP office. And please excuse my typo on this PowerPoint slide. Change it to June 26th, which is today's date. But yes, we are here today for another CAP office hour. So before we I definitely like to check in with everyone just to make sure that you're able to hear me at this time. So if I can have just a couple people type in the chat and let me know if you were able to hear me, that will be great. Thank you very much for letting me know. For those of you who have just typed in the chat, everyone is muted upon entry into the Zoom room. However, if you find that you are not muted, please go ahead and mute yourself so that we can make sure that we don't have any, feedback or additional conversations while anyone is speaking. We anticipate a mid-sized group today, so I think we'll be okay if we were to allow people to unmute themselves so that you can engage verbally. However, definitely please still use the chat to ask any questions that you may have, and we'll be sure to get to those questions as they arise. Again, use the chat to let us know if you are experiencing any technical difficulties. I'll be on hand to definitely help you with that. And what that would look like is a private chat. You'll see my name highlighted in red, and that's my way of communicating with you privately. So definitely be on the lookout for that if you experience any technical difficulties. We are taking attendance during today's session. So if you registered with a different name and you are logged on with a different name, definitely let us know who you are so that we can account for you in our attendance. If you are using an acronym or your consortium name, or you are identifying whether you're a student or instructor, definitely be sure to let us know so that we'll be able to account for you in our attendance record. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on the California Adult Education website later on this afternoon. So if you need to access it for future reference or you'd like to share with a colleague, it will be on the California Adult Education website, and I'll be sure to post the URL of exactly where that would be later on. So now I'll turn it over to Neil, who will get us started with today's CAP office hour. Neil?
All right, thanks, Veronica. Welcome, everyone. So let's see, we've got about 100 people on, which is great for summer. But I guess everybody wants to know what's happening with the budget. And you guys might know more than I do because they haven't really spelled, I mean, there's some cryptic language that lists $707 million and it combines K-12 strong workforce and adult education. So if all goes well from what we've been hearing and what we saw in the Assembly and Senate budget, I'm looking at a spreadsheet I just kind of created for today's call. So last year, our 1920 adult ed allocation was $538,564,000. So if we are funded back at that level, current level from the May revise is $584,208,000. So that would be about 11.2257542% increase if you wanted to go all the way out in the decimal points. So pretty much 11% increase if they're getting us back to the 538,564,000 that we had last year. Now keep in mind that if you see a number that says 543 million, that's because they added the data and accountability contract or amount in there, and that pays for contracts like CASAS, WestEd, NOVA, SCOE, some of the other contracts we have. So we always have to make sure we don't allocate the data and accountability money out there. So that's why I haven't seen the budget line item to know where everything is. But if they are going to fund it at 1920 levels, then it would be about 11.22% increase for everyone. So let me pause there to see if we have any questions.
Hey Neil, it's Frank.
Hey Frank, how's it going?
It's going well. Is that the inside of the place up around the corner? Is that,
no, this is back home.
Oh, you're back home already?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. I missed the beginning. I was wrapping up another meeting, unfortunately. So I just want to make sure I understand. So this potential roughly 11% increase is on top. It is really over last year's, this year's amount, not 11% of the 12% cut.
So what it is, we're going from the May revise, which was the cut. So right now we're working with 484,208,000. That's the amount in the May revise. If they fund us back to 1920 level, which is 538,564,000, it's about a $54,356,000 increase. And so that works out to about 11.22%. So that would be the increase. It's the increase from the cut.
May revise.
Yeah, the May revise.
Yeah, not an increase from the January original budget.
No,
so it gets us really.
So we
basically
actually
eliminates the COLA and
yeah.
keeps us almost level funded.
Right. So what it is, if you're going by the January governor's proposed budget, it would be we lost the COLA, but we kept our level funding from prior year. If that's how it plays out. I mean, because I'm looking at the percentages, I'm looking at the numbers, maybe they kind of round up on some of these percentages, so we maybe got a little bit more or less. So that's why I'm kind of waiting to see the final numbers in the line item in the trailer bill to know exactly how much money we're going to give out to everyone. And so you guys know how much exactly each member would be getting in addition to the amount you just, if you did certify in the May revise in NOVA. So, and we'll talk about how that would work in NOVA, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understands the, what we're talking about. So Kristen says 11% over the May revise, correct. And let's see if we have any other questions. Sue says, isn't it just level funding without the COLA? Yes, that's correct. But Sue, I want to confirm the actual dollar amount. If it's not 538,564,000, then it's not really the level funding from last year. I'm hoping we get back to that amount or maybe they'll give us more. I don't know. Maybe there will be a percentage roundup and maybe we'll get a couple $100,000 more. I don't know. Maybe a few $1 million more. So we'll see what that final number is. I mean, it sounds like it would be that, but until I see the actual numbers, we're gonna kind of wait and see. But that's close. I mean, 11% is close. And then Dana says, could this change again if the feds kick in more funds later? I mean, if you read the papers about, what's going to happen there, I think if the feds don't kick in, we might see this change again. I think this is relying on the feds kicking in money. And so if the feds don't kick in, then you could see some cuts later on, I think. Eileen says, will we still be waiting for funds to be released until later in the year? So, okay, let's talk about that. So CDE and the Chancellor's Office met this week, had a big powwow on Monday, and then legal offices have been meeting throughout the week. So we're trying to get everybody on the same page. It's a #1 priority to get these funds out as soon as the governor signs the budget. So the interagency agreement has been viewed by both parties. Everybody's promising to expedite this. So we're not anticipating these funds getting out later in the year. Now, if there is some kind of change, like Dana was suggesting, like the Fed money doesn't materialize and they have to do more cuts or something, then there could be some change later on, but that would be after the fact, and it would probably be done at the state level to your payment schedules that go out. But if there is an increase, we'd have to do like maybe another agreement if we couldn't put it all in one. So we're not anticipating any late release of funds. We want to get these funds out as soon as possible. So everyone is on board. Hopefully, I cross my fingers that it'll all work out. We'll get the funds out to you on time. So stay tuned on that. And that's as of this week. And then, so what would happen in NOVA? So how many people haven't approved their current allocation amendment from the May revised reduction? Let's see if there's a, yeah, so Sue, I'm asking if, let's do a show of hands, I think on the participant list, how many people raise your hand if you have not done your allocation amendment for the May revise in NOVA? So I'm not seeing anybody that hasn't.
Neil,
Yes.
your CS, and we're gonna do it on Tuesday.
Okay. So what's critical is to get the current allocation amendment certified, because if we get this increase, this $54 million increase, we will have to do another NOVA, as Sue says, revision, which we call an allocation amendment. And what we'll do is we'll take the $54,356,000 and we'll prorate that among the consortia. You know, you get your share based on the formula. And then we will go into NOVA with that amount per consortia, and we will add that into NOVA. So then you'll see a positive, where the last time we did this with the May revise, there was a negative. So now you'll see a positive. And so the members have to go in, you guys have to meet and figure out, you know, who's going to get what. Under Ed Code, you know, you have to, everybody gets the same percentage increase. So it would be 11.22, whatever. And if there were any changes, like somebody said, you know, I can't do it. You know, as of COVID, I lost all my teachers. We're not going to be operating in the fall. Or, you know, because things have changed in the last 3 weeks or so, or could. Their districts might have been, you know, shutting adult ed down, or who knows. So if that's the case, then you can redirect those funds to other members. And so you'd have to have that conversation. And I'll have Veronica will kind of walk us through this, but let's see if there were any questions related to that. So Jody says, if the line item amount on the budget is unknown, how was an interagency agreement finalized? Do I understand that the agreement made this week is a prelim and will adjust once it's all is final? So what we did, Jody, just take a step back. What we did is on the interagency agreement, we have approval from the Board of Governors up to $550 million, because that was the amount in the governor's proposed budget back in January. So we're going forward with language in the contract that says we'll approve the interagency agreement up to $550 million. We know it's going to be a lot less, but we can work with any number below the 550. So with that language, that allows the interagency agreement to be finalized, and then we just work together on the allocation distribution number for the direct funded members, if that makes sense. So that's where we have to get that information from you. If you're direct funded, we have to find out the exact dollar amount by member. Fiscal agent's a lot easier because we just give it to the fiscal agent, they just send it out. So we'll be waiting to hear from you what that exact dollar amount. That's why that NOVA certification for the allocation amendments will be so critical.
Okay, to follow up on that, Neil, then does that solve the delay of distribution issue that we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
What was that issue? Remind me.
When we were trying to brainstorm ideas about how to make sure that the funding distribution goes, is expedited and gets into the accounts of the agencies so that there isn't a delay.
Yeah, so the good thing is, at least we know, so if this is 11% increase, we know 89% of the amount that everyone should be getting, because, you know, we had that spreadsheet and you guys worked with me on, and then some of you certified in NOVA, but we all got it on, figured out on that spreadsheet that we've been working on. So that's firm. So if we didn't want to wait 45 days for you guys to go back in and certify and delay it, we could get the first installment going as soon as possible, get that out to you, and then add in the 11% increase in a subsequent installment. And that's kind of the thing we're kind of working out between Chancellor's Office and CDE. How do we, get those schedules and how do we get the money out without delaying anything? So I don't think it's going to delay anything. I think we might have to do a couple of modifications because we know you guys need some time to set up that additional public meeting or additional meeting to go in and certify in Nova this proposed so far 11.22% increase that hopefully will be confirmed once the governor signs the budget. So does that make sense, Jody?
Manufacturing support.
Yep, got it. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we've got most of the numbers. We've got the big chunk. Now we just got to, this increase, we just got to figure out, how much everybody's going to get. We're assuming everybody's going to get the 11%, but there could be those discussions about something went haywire in the last month. And I know for one, there's an agency in one consortia that just submitted a letter saying we're dropping out. So they have to reallocate all those funds from that member. So there are some circumstances, there's probably only going to be a handful, but times are strange. And in the last month, things have happened. And so maybe in your consortia, you might have one of those members that just say, we can't do it anymore, or we've changed direction, or the district is doing this and we can't do it for adult ed. So stay tuned on that. All right, so then Kristen said, when do you think you will have formal communication about this new allocation next week? Just wondering what the timeline is. So the timeline is as soon as we can confirm with like finance or our ledge people, either at CDE or the Chancellor's Office, or if Don Kepke or somebody can point us to where it is written, we'll go with that number, we'll confirm it. Then we'll do the local or the consortia share, percentage that out. We'll probably share a preliminary document with you guys, just saying, here's what it's looking like. And then if everybody's okay with that, then we'll go into Nova and we'll input the allocation amendment increases. And so that should all be done. So let's see, July 1st is Wednesday. Has anybody heard when they project the governor to sign the budget? Was it today or Monday? What is everybody hearing?
I heard Tuesday.
Tuesday? Okay. So as soon as we get confirmation, hopefully it's Monday. If not, we'll wait for Tuesday. But as soon as we get that confirmation, then we'll start working with those numbers. And then we'll do the share out by consortia, and then we'll put it into Nova, and then you guys can go in and start certifying. And then we'll update the spreadsheet to reflect the disbursement of funds. So that's kind of how it will work. So that means, so for Kristen's timeline, I would hope to get all this out by July 1st, maybe no later than the 2nd into Nova. So it should happen really quick next week. At the earliest, June 30th, at the latest, maybe July 2nd. Let's see. So then let's see. Chrissy says, was it a member who dropped out or a consortia? No, it's just a member of a consortia, not the whole consortia. All right, so people have heard the 30th next week. All right, so we're all caught up. Let's bring in Veronica. And Veronica's just gonna walk you through, so based on Kristen's question and based on people's input, if the 30th is the day the budget signs and we get those numbers and we do all our calculations, and maybe by the 1st we put the allocation amendment into Nova. Then Veronica's going to walk you through the next steps, but she's going to remind you that you have to do the first, if you haven't done the allocation amendment yet that's pending, you might want to do that first, but she'll walk you through that. Veronica?
Thank you, Neil. So yes, for everyone, I just logged into Nova and I'm going to go to a consortium and just show where things will change. And just as Neil said, we are requesting that you complete the May revise first and then go back into the system to complete another allocation amendment so that there are two clear transactions, just in case we have to review this data again, or if someone asks a question for public record, we want to make sure that there are two separate clear transactions that have taken place because of the different situations that have occurred. So I'm just going to go into Allen Hancock again, and this is just for demonstration purposes. The numbers are what they are, but I'm just going to demonstrate what things will look like on your end once this next step is completed. So I am on Allen Hancock's page, and I'm going to go into their CFAD because, again, the numbers here do change. However, you will not make any changes in this section since the CFAD has already been consortium approved. So here, where they have a total remaining of negative $209,695, this number, especially if we're going to have an increase, this number will increase. So now you'll have a positive total remaining of whatever the increase amounts to for this consortium. But remember, this positive total remaining will stay. It will not, you won't have to do anything on this page since the CFAD is consortium approved. So you'll just go in here just to make sure that the numbers are correct and that your increase is listed exactly as it should be. Then you will move out of the CFAD and go into the allocation amendment section, and you will complete an additional allocation amendment to account for the increase in your consortium allocation for the 2020-2021 program year. So I'm scrolling down in here. So right now it says their total remaining is 0. So the total remaining will equate to whatever increase they have received as a result of this new budget deal. And so what will happen is they will then go in and complete an allocation amendment to account for this increase. So they will divide the total increase amongst all of the members. The consortium primary contact will submit those changes for the allocation amendment, and then each member will go in and they will approve the allocation amendment, or they can reject it, and then the consortium has to go back into discussions about the actual allocation amendment and then come back in and redo the process. But in theory, everyone should approve or could approve, and then it will be completed. And so now when you go into your budget phase later on, in the summer or early into the fall, then your total amount for the entire year for the 2020-2021 with the May revise and the addition of the new deal plus any carryover will be available to you for 2020 to 2021. So yes, it will be a second allocation amendment. So prior to completing, so Neil says that the time frame is between Tuesday and Thursday for the new numbers to be into Nova. So we're asking that you complete that May revise if you haven't done it already prior to that, and prior to completing a second allocation amendment.
Veronica, what would happen if they didn't do the allocation amendment prior to that? What would happen in Nova? It would just combine the two numbers, wouldn't it?
Yes, it will combine both transactions.
So you wouldn't be able to see the difference. So if the member of the public wanted to see, okay, what was the decision made on the May revise versus what was the decision made on the increase, you wouldn't be able to separate that out for public transparency, right? It would just all run together.
Yes, it will all run together. And how the public will view the different transactions is going to the view history. and you can see each of the transactions, and then you can also see when each of the transactions took place, when they actually transpired. So you will have the date and time stamp here, which will let us know, around what time did this consortium complete the May revise, and around which time frame did they complete the increase, the allocation amendment based on the increase for the new budget deal. So we definitely want to make sure that we separate the two transactions.
Okay, so we'll have to put something probably in the newsletter next week and maybe a direct communique just explaining how this will work prior to me uploading the numbers into Nova, so everyone will know what the process is, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Dana says, when will the new allocation amendment have to be completed? I would say we usually give you guys 45 days. So if July 1 was the date we put it in, or June 30th, then you'd have until like August 15th, which is the date of the annual plan certification. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but at least it's a milestone you're already familiar with, or a deadline that you're already familiar with. So any questions for Veronica on how this will work in Nova? I know some of you, I think Janeth said that they're doing their certification on Thursday. So if I did put these numbers in on
No,
like,
we're
you
doing-
did?
Sorry, go ahead, Neil.
No, maybe I misheard.
No, on Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, okay.
Certifying on
Okay.
Thursday.
So Thursday probably be too late because then the numbers would run together. Tuesday is fine.
Okay.
So I think for everyone will, and Sue just said, which will probably be when we'll have to do it again. Yeah, so we'll probably look to me and putting these numbers in on Wednesday just to give everybody a chance, because I know there's a few that haven't done their allocation amendments yet. I don't know, Veronica, you don't know offhand how many we're talking?
No, I don't. I'll have to take a look and see.
Okay, it might be just a handful, I think. And these are probably the fiscal agent consortia. I know all the direct funded members probably have gone through this drill because it was a lot more critical for them to get that information. So, any questions? I mean, that's pretty much the latest that we have. So we have the information on the budget deal. You have how much that is proposed. Hopefully the governor will sign it. You have kind of the timeline and process that we're going to use to finalize this information in Nova. And then you have the follow-up steps that you're going to be required. And then we gave you an update on how that funding will be dispersed out to fiscal agents and direct funded members. So I don't know, does anybody have any questions on that? Or we could move on to other topics. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So Veronica, I was out on Tuesday, but I think, didn't we have a webinar on Tuesday with CASAS?
Yes, we did.
I'm just checking, was that well attended?
Yeah, there were over 100 participants during that
Okay.
webinar. Mhm.
Are there any data questions that Jay couldn't answer, or just general feedback? Are you feeling comfortable going into the fall in regards to our student data and how we're dealing with, I know the online testing was an issue and it's going to be a little problematic with scaling that up, but how are people feeling? Oh, Jay's here. So Jay, Jody said, great webinar on data capturing. So Jay, you just got a kudo.
Great.
So Jay, if you want to just give a
Recap.
couple, just a recap, and let's do a temperature reading on how you're feeling as far as data, not necessarily on how you're feeling overall, because that's a little too personal, but
Right.
just just your general feeling on how we're looking for data coming
Well,
into
the
next
easy
year.
way to look at it, I guess, is, I'll kind of recap from Tuesday, is it tried to be a hybrid of all the DL COVID-19 things we've been talking about for, it seems like forever, the last few months, with just some kind of rudimentary suggestions for things you can still do for data collection. So I kind of called it a coalition of the willing, where if you're going to attend a webinar like that, that suggests you're looking for trying to maximize ways to still show good growth for students despite it all. So that's kind of what it was showing, is using things like passage of an exam, workforce prep milestone, those kind of things, applying that to things like EL Civics, workforce prep demonstrations, a lot of the things that people are doing with educational software. And then also looking at things like the DIR and kind of looking at, things that you're going to necessarily going to see changing because of all the obvious issues with COVID-19 versus some other things like demographics that really shouldn't be affected. So trying to point out what you really, kind of can conveniently attribute to COVID-19 versus what maybe you shouldn't really attribute to that.
All right, great. And TAP said that we'll be doing part 2 of this webinar series on Tuesday, July 21st, followed by the next day on July 22nd with a data submission guidelines webinar, and they'll be posting the registration link for that soon. So if you enjoyed Tuesday, we're going to give you like about a 3-week break, and then we're going to go right back into data the 3rd week of July. Does that sound? Are you really excited about that, Jay?
Very. Yeah, we're going to be doing a repeat performance on July 21, and I don't know if it's on the website, but we'll be doing that CAEP data submission guidelines, which is just more about going over all the steps you complete to do the data submission in case somebody new is doing that, whatever. That'll be on the 22nd.
Okay, and then Veronica, was Tuesday's webinar recorded if people missed it?
Bye.
Yes, it was. I'm posting the link now.
Oh, great. Okay, so Sally, just check for that link. She's going to post that there. And let's see. So Jay, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I heard Octave might be looking at some extra measurable skill gains on, is it the CTE side, or what have you heard on that as far as?
I have to say I haven't heard anything on that. I sat through the one that Cheryl and Jay did on Tuesday. Gotta say, I didn't hear anything like what you said. Maybe they were kind of purposefully holding that under their hat. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, my not to be named sources said they might be coming out with some guidance, more guidance on that. We'll see. It doesn't really impact CAEP because we're doing it anyway. Because we dial in all our measurable skill gains, not just the WIOA 2 ones, we dial in the WIOA 1 one. So we're already ahead of the game on that one.
Well, if for those that are doing COAEB, I think I saw one of the COAEB emails. I think they're looking at doing another one of those town halls like on July 6th or 7th or something like that. It sounds like there might be another town hall that they're doing kind of at the tail end of COAEB to bookmark the one they did the other day to start it all off.
Oh, okay. Great. All right. So the link is posted in case you missed it.
Neil, it's
yes.
Chrissy. I wanted to know if I could ask a question.
Yes.
I'm thinking about this this increase in budget, this 11% that's coming this week. What are the chances in the August revise of them taking this back again? The budget doesn't seem very secure, and to be able to have to take everything away and rework all those budgets and then say, oh, we got it back, it would really be devastating to say, hey, we have to take it back again.
Right.
And I'm thinking that is a possibility.
Well, anything could happen in this day and age, but we can't control that. So I don't know what to do. I mean, we just have to react to what they give us. So they're giving us more money. They took money away. Now they're giving us some of the money they took away. So, we'll just have to deal with it. I don't know. I guess from a planning standpoint at the local level, I mean, are there strategies people are using because of the seesaw nature of the funding? What are you doing to protect yourself? Like Christy's saying, you know, what happens in August? Let's say the revenue comes in or the federal money doesn't materialize and they've got to cut us again. So what strategies are people using to protect themselves? And so Mitch says he's holding any additional funds with the fiscal agent until all this is settled. So if you're direct funded, you can't really hold money at the fiscal agent. But the only thing, Mitch, about the holding it at the fiscal agent, according to Ed Code, you can only hold those funds at the fiscal agent level for 45 days. Otherwise, you have to distribute it. The only good thing is you don't get a lump sum. Well, I don't know if this is a good thing, but you get 11 installments of funds from July to May. So you could, I guess, hold the July, August funding until that 45th day before you release it. But that's only for fiscal agents, and that's only 30, I think we have 31 consortia that are direct funded. So we only have 40 that are fiscal agent. So it's kind of a mixed bag there.
Neil, this is Janet. We're also a fiscal agent, but I just want some clarification or further information. If I understood correctly, the state's budget is to defer it or to kind of, you know, give back the amount or at least close to for our 21 fiscal budget. But what about the next year? Are they removing, like, are they cutting a greater amount for the following year? And I'm with Chrissy, like we're kind of, and I understand like the frustration to say, okay, we plan for budget cuts and we're planning for this big chunk, and then all of a sudden, oh, never mind, here it is, here's some of it back, like a big portion of it. But then I want to let them know, what about next year? Are we gonna get it cut again plus more? Or what's the feedback on that so that we could be best prepared? I mean, yes, we're going to put it on hold or treat it as a one-time cost because we can't depend on it. But
yeah,
I mean,
I guess I would say that they haven't flexed the Ed Code, which is a good thing. So you still have to adhere to, you know, 45-day rule. You can't hold the money for more than 45 days. The money has to get out in, you know, increments, installments of monthly installments. We have to have the adult ed plan. I think the legislature has to wait to see what the revenue amounts come in, what the unemployment projections are, what the economy projections, and that's all up in the air. So I think everyone's in the same boat as far as what's going on. I think your district, who has other programs, would probably be looking at this, so they might have some strategies that the district is doing.
right.
So I don't have that crystal ball, so you got to just stay tuned to that.
Okay.
Let me answer some of the questions that are coming in. So Laura said part 2 of the data webinar is after the data submission deadline. No, the data submission deadline for CAEP is August 1st. I think you're talking about the WIOA data submission. WIOA 2, I think that's July 15th. So don't get those two mixed up.
Yeah, I'll just add, yes, that's correct. And it's kind of purposefully in between those dates, so it's not conflicting with WIOA data, but still enough time ahead of the CAEP deadline just to add to that. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Jay. And then Christy says, our strategy is not to budget back in the activities we cut. Wait until we know with more certainty that funds are confirmed. So that's a good suggestion. Jody says, local decisions about delivery of classes and services may impact how funds expand as much as anything. Some may continue distance learning, while others may have blended or in-person. Costs will vary. And then Sally says, budgeting conservatively, figuring what 11% is, and planning for special project or class. I don't anticipate next year being better, so staying conservative. And then Marianne says, isn't it required to be funded at the previous year level for 2021? So Marianne, you're referring to the ed code is, so the ed code is if we get an amount less than or greater than from the state, then the member gets the same amount proportional to the cut or increase. So when we say, oh, we're getting 11% increase, that means your members get an 11% increase. That way you don't vote to say, okay, this person gets a 20% increase, this person gets a 5% increase. The ed code says everyone gets the same amount if that's the total increase. So if it's 11% increase, then everybody gets an 11% increase. Unless you say you can't do it, or you don't want to do it, or you're an ineffective member, then you invoke that ed code clause that allows you to reallocate or reduce that amount based on, whatever technical assistance you provided, if the member was ineffective, to redirect those funds. So Sally says we had delayed apportionment for 1920. Should we expect on-time apportionments for 2021? So I think, Sally, what you're referring to is the distribution of funds from CDE. I think there was some delayed apportionments. We're not sure why that was happening. I know Carolyn Zachary is following up to see why those delays were happening. It was in the accounting office of CDE, not in the adult ed office, because according to statute, those funds are supposed to go out in monthly installments. It's in ed code of what that schedule is. So I think CDE is taking that serious, why those delays happen. We know one was a personnel issue in accounting when someone left, but we're not sure why the recent one. So it's good to stay on top of that. I don't know if anybody from CDE is on the call, but they are aware of that and they are working on it. And we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Okay, so let's see. So Veronica, do you want to review? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you did put something in the newsletter related to the summit. Did you want to just quickly highlight that if people didn't get a chance to read that this week?
Yes, I can. So the announcement in the summit was to let everyone know of the dates that the summit will take place. So we are planning to host the summit on October 26th through October 29th of this year, and it will be virtually. It will be a virtual conference, and we are also planning for the cost to be free so that everyone can attend within your consortium, within your individual agencies. We are working on the registration as we speak, and so we are hoping to release that in the next couple of weeks, as well as the call for proposal. So since we had to shift gears, there was a lot of behind the scenes work that had to take place first, but now we are in a steady place where we are working on it very, very hard to make sure that we deliver a great summit this fall. So stay tuned, more details will come out shortly.
Okay, great. And then we are still having the directors meeting virtually on October 5th. Is that the correct date?
That is correct. The directors event will take place on October 5th, and it will be a day-long event starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it'll go until 4:30 in the afternoon. And so a direct invitation will be sent to consortium leadership, inviting consortium leaders as well as administrators to that day-long training.
Okay, and that'll be virtual as well, right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Let's see what else. The planning memo that was released via the newsletter. So if you had any questions about the annual plan that is due August 15th, we did a webinar last Friday. So that's archived. And we also have the memo. If you want to reference to the memo, that's been posted. So that was in the newsletter. And I think that's it. We'll be posting the upcoming data webinars for July. We do have a beginning of the year accountability webinar scheduled for August 5th. And I'm just thinking, is there going to be any big changes for 2021 for data collection? I think we are still going with, I don't know, Jay, if you're still on the line, you can say if I'm misrepresenting this, but I think we are going to confirm on CAEP is 18 years and older. And that if you are reporting under 18, that's based on your program. So as you know, in Launchboard and in TOPS-Pro, they collect more data than just CAEP. They collect WIOA2. In Launchboard, they collect the COMAS data as well as TOPS-Pro data, WIOA2 data. Sometimes we get other program data in there. And so they all have different age requirements. CAEP data is 18 and over, and that's firm. And so we wanted to clarify that because I guess there were some questions when they did the Launchboard training. They actually go down to 16 because WIOA2 in some cases allows for under 18 to be served, but that's not reflective of the CAEP ed code. It's just Launchboard has many different programs. CAEP's one of them. And so people thought, oh, if Launchboard is collecting that data, then we can serve people under 18 with CAEP funds, and that's not possible. CAEP funds are firm. It's in ed code. It says 18 years and older. So we'll be doing stuff like that. I don't think there's any other big ticket stuff that we're going to be doing data-wise that will rock your socks. Jay, is there anything on the data side
I don't know if too much like that. Yeah, I can see the question because last year this time there were a lot of those things with passage of an exam and workforce, prep milestone and some of those things that we changed a lot, but there really isn't nearly as much of that this year, I guess, because there's so much change everywhere else. There's a lot less change in CAEP land, it seems.
Right. And Lori's question, does that include, wait, it just dropped. Does that include students who are under 18, but their graduating class graduated early? So Lori, that depends on the program that you're reporting it under. So like CAEP rules are different than WIOA2 rules. I mean, we are serving adults, but there are some exceptions under certain programs, like for WIOA2. So it depends on what program you're referring to. CAEP's pretty firm on 18 is 18. But other programs have, different age requirements and how they deal with them. So let's see, Laura says, any idea when we will know the WIOA grant amounts we will receive? It was discussed in our consortium meeting, lots of interest in knowing for budget plan. I thought those went out. I don't know, does anybody know about you can unmute if you know about the WIOA amounts. I know the letters went out, but did anybody get the grant amounts?
What they did, Neil, is they posted who was getting the various grants, but no financial information with it.
Okay. All right, so, and Carolyn's not on today, so we can't ask her.
This is Jody. I checked with Carolyn on that because I thought they were both coming out at the same time. But she indicated to me that until the feds release the amounts and they go from there, it'll be at the same timeline that has been in the past. So I don't think we're going to see that for a little while.
Okay.
No, so we're not going to get grant award notices until probably September or October.
Okay. Is that the norm?
Yes, that's the norm.
Okay.
Far better than it was in the past. In the past, it was like January, and that was really difficult.
Right. Okay.
Amen.
Okay, Sally asks, I may have missed it. Do state deferrals apply to CAEP? Not that we've heard of. So Sally, the Chancellor's Office has transferred all the money through the IA. And so the CDE should have enough money to fund those last payments for the end of this year. So we haven't heard of any deferments. And we're the Chancellor's Office is the owner of the interagency agreement. So none of that has changed. We haven't heard anything about for 2021. You know, we'll try to get that money over to controllers as soon as we can sign that interagency agreement. We haven't heard if that's going to be deferred. There were, you know, some language. That's why I want to see that final trailer bill to see if there are any deferments in there and what that means. But we'll wait and see what the details are once they release that. But for 1920, we haven't heard of anything like that. Okay, and then Sean says, are there any updates from CASAS about increasing the one-on-one online proctor to student ratio for CASAS testing to something higher, e.g. 1 to 5, 1 to 10? I understand that even high school AP testing was done without this 1-to-1 issue. Jay, are you still
I
on
sent a link. I mean, that's
Okay.
a lot. I mean, the short answer is we have 1 to 5 already. So that link will show that. 1 to 10 is something we're thinking about and working on, but don't have available. The short answer, though, is the link to our remote testing page I put in the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I see that. And Diana says lots of CASAS info at CAEP next week. That's great. So somebody fill me in, unmute themselves. Are a lot of people going to CAEP next week virtually? Is that a destination conference? Anybody?
Hi, Neil. It's Nancy from Santa Rosa. And it's an online conference. And because it went online, they had to cancel it because it was originally in April. They've actually increased their attendance this year.
Oh,
Really looking forward to it.
okay. And then I guess along with CASAS, do we have a lot of adult education presentations from California?
Santa Rosa's presenting twice.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Nancy. Is anybody else presenting at CAEP other than the Sonoma Consortia and CASAS?
Not presenting, but they did say, I had asked about the timing because some of the things start at 8 in the morning, which is 5 in the morning for us.
Yeah.
And they are holding them at that time, but they said they'll be recorded and you can access them for up to 6 months.
Yeah, I guess that's all right. I don't know. That's kind of like I don't know. We would never do that.
We do have one CAREC person that's presenting, Grace from Davis.
Oh, okay. Sue, what's she presenting on?
I have no clue.
I'm sure she's going to do a good job, though.
Maybe Karen, if she's still on, knows.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, and then so Jay has 2 presentations Tuesday morning. Hopefully they aren't at 5 a.m., Jay. That would be brutal. So anybody have any information? Estella wants to know if she can still register for the CAEP conference. And Laura says you can still register. I don't know if anybody wants to put a registration link in the chat to help Estella and anybody else who wants to register if they're interested for next week. And oh, you can get 2 people for the price of 1. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, Laura. So Estella, if you have a friend, I don't think you have to be in the same room. You can register 2 people virtually and you don't have to attend on the same laptop. All right, so if someone can post the registration link, that would be great for CAEP, or maybe she can find it. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Kristen. All right, so we got about 6 minutes left. Let's see what else we got. Well, it was surprising to see a 4.4% increase in student data. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We'll see what happens at the end of the year next month when we get our 4th quarter or end of the year data in for 1920. It looks like we're keeping pace from the prior year. That would be incredible if we kept up with the same number of participants. Next year, we'll see. I don't know, that's a whole mixed bag for next year. But at least, you know, if we can get some steam going into next year, maybe that'll give us some confidence to deal with all the gyrations we're doing with testing and distance learning and stuff like that. And the budget, you know, gymnastics or contortions that we're doing. So other than that, looks like it's going to be a quiet July, right? We've got a couple of costless webinars and just a few allocation amendments to deal with, and maybe some public meetings, some annual planning. I don't know. Veronica, anything else to add as far as upcoming things or reminders?
No, I did post, well, I posted several links. So if you didn't attend last Friday's annual plan webinar, I posted the link where the recording as well as the PowerPoint is located. I also posted a link for the annual plan memo. And in addition, I posted a link for the CAEP Summit announcement, as well as a link to the registration page. So anyone can register for any of the upcoming events, including the regional network meetings, which will take place starting the second week of August. And over the summer, or at least over the summer and including over the July month, definitely pay attention to the newsletter, because that's where we will be funneling a lot of communication as we do any other time, but definitely pay attention to that.
Okay, and since we only have a few more minutes, I'm going to be like Todd down at Chafee. I'm going to throw a zinger out there right before we close. So let me think about this. So if we're moving into the future, there has been some discussion at the state level to goal setting and performance measures. And so I'm thinking about what would that look like? You know, we're going through all these craziness this year with the online learning and the budget cuts and this and that. But when the smoke clears and we have to look at, you know, what was the statewide averages and goal setting for future plans and things like that, what should that be for adult ed? I mean, are we looking at things like high school diplomas achieved? Are we looking at measurable skill gains? Are we looking at degrees and certifications and, you know, workforce certs and stuff like that? So what would be metrics that we would want to look at to benchmark each other, to move things forward? You know, I was looking at I was on Launchboard looking at the transition data, and it was really interesting because I was looking at the consortia and districts that were transitioning from ABE and ESL to ASE. And then I looked at the transition from ASE, ABE, ESL to post-secondary, completely different schools, completely different numbers as far as who was transferring what. And I guess that might make sense because, you know, maybe a post-secondary transition is going to be this way and an ASE transition would be a different way. But it was so vastly different and regionally different that, you know, maybe people are in certain areas focusing on that ASE transition and they don't necessarily focus on the post-secondary transition, where some focus only on the post-secondary transition. They have very little ASE transition. There was only a few areas where it crossed over, where they had a strong ASE transition and a strong post-secondary transition. And when I mean post-secondary transition, that could be a CTE transition or a transition into a credit level coursework, transfer level coursework. So, and Burr says immigrant integration metrics for ESL. Yeah, that's another one we've got to consider. That would be like, I think Costas is working on tracking COAP completion as it relates to the immigrant integration metrics. And so that would be another thing to think about when we're looking at metrics. So I don't know, we got what, 30 seconds for any feedback? Nancy says completion. Oh, let's see. So I just missed it.
Hey,
completion. Neil. Go ahead, Ryan.
Question here. Okay, so I'm curious about what your conversation has been with anybody representing legislature or the fiscal office up there. What are they talking about as far as outcomes that mean something to them? We can tell our story, but I also want to know what's resonating with those who ensure that we continue to get funded. So, what are they reacting to? Because I mean, we're obviously serving a large population. We kind of go back and forth on talking about return on investment, which I always think is big because that always talks about the earning potential based on what our students accomplish. So I feel like that's what we really are contributing to. But what have you seen them reacting to, if anything? Because I also feel like we got saved, after 09 and that burn. When we walked away with that quote unquote 12% cut, I actually thought that was pretty good, so given what we were facing. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, so what I hear is what my administration lets me hear. So I can't hear what the lobbyists hear, I can't talk to ledge members and stuff like that. I'm a stifled state employee, unfortunately. So what I see is the direction from our Chancellor Oakley of Vision for Success and those metrics. And then conversely over at CDE, I mean, Carolyn might point to the WIOA 2 and those metrics and things like that. But I think overall they're looking at, people getting into work, getting a better job or a job, and then lifelong learning, getting advanced, educational attainment, whether that's a high school diploma or some kind of certification or advanced degree, or, so their earning power is a lot stronger. I don't know if we haven't really tied anything. We just talk about this. We've never really tied it. We haven't even promoted statewide averages. So I think what you'll see is maybe the publishing of the data to show that people can benchmark. Because I mean, I've had some cases where someone says, oh, I want to do this. And I look at their numbers and they have very few participants reaching 12 hours. And I said, hey, your cost per participant is way high. The statewide average is like $800-900, maybe $1,000, and you're triple that. Maybe you should think about getting more people into, the classroom, getting that 12-hour mark. But we've never had those kind of conversations. It's all kind of alluded to, but we've never put anything behind it like performance goals, kind of like on the WIOA 2 side.
Right.
There is some kind of impetus to get to that pay point. I don't think we want to go pay points.
Right.
Because that would kill our most needy students. But I think just benchmarking and look at those performance goals would be important.
But I want to throw something out at you. And Jay, this resonated from one of your data conversations. When you talked about the feds, before COVID hit, really looking at barriers to employment. And so for the past few meetings in our consortium, I've been walking back through our barriers to employment data, looking at each site and looking at the summary numbers. And there are powerful statements about the populations that we're serving. And so when we can move those people forward who have those identified WIOA barriers, I think that also resonates to people. So if you have a homeless population that you serve, if you have the ex-offender population, or any of those targets that are also connecting to other issues going on in the state, I think those resonate also. So just something to keep in mind for everybody, that as we're reporting data and having local conversations, that, if the feds are looking at it and we see other revenue streams coming to help support these populations, I think we also have to hone in on those numbers of those special populations that we're serving as well. Also, especially with the outcomes for those particular populations, because anecdotally, if we move a person who was on public assistance to employment, we've taken them from that negative impact on state monies to someone who's actually a contributor. So just something to think about.
Right. Thanks, Ryan. And there's been a lot of good comments in the chat, all very valid comments and things that, the state will have to consider as we move forward. And I think this is a conversation we start having in the fall maybe have some kind of listening sessions at the summit, the virtual summit, where we hear about, how are we going to approach this? Because I heard some comments about like, hey, most in need, the minute you start, collecting data and using performance, then that shifts the resources from some of those students. And then, the more data you have to track, the more money you might need to track that data. So we've got to do this as an informed group moving forward. So I think it's good to start the conversation now, like Ryan is starting right now. And we just, have that listening session, have a lot of dialogue before we jump into this. So I like it. We could have maybe talked all today about this conversation, but maybe for next time we'll have a good conversation about
absolutely
performance and metrics and priority and student progress and transition and equity and all those good topics. So, all right, we went over time, but it was a good overtime, and wish all of you a great weekend. Veronica, anything to close?
Just thank you everyone for your time and your participation in today's office hour. Again, it will be posted on the CAEP website later on this afternoon for access. Definitely feel free to review it and or share it with other colleagues who were unable to attend and complete our evaluation. Thank you very much. And then also look out for the newsletters and other communication coming out during the month of August.
So Veronica, today wasn't an office hour, it was an office hour plus, because we added extra 7 minutes.
Sounds good.
My fault.
All right.
Thank you,
have
everyone.
a good weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Okay.